Okay, so we're meeting here today as our sixth grade team to discuss our first mastery standard. And that standard is RI 6.1, and it's citing the textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the other text. So before we get started, let's review our PLC norms.
Okay, the PLC norms are begin and end on time, stay on topic, and be an active listener.
Excellent. So let's quickly review our roles. I will be the facilitator. I'll be guiding us through today, and then Matt, you will be our note taker as well as the timekeeper. Make sure we get out of here on time.
All right.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look back at our standard, and we're going to look at the nouns, verbs, and adjectives that coincide with this standard.
Okay, so some of the nouns that we have are evidence and inference. Our verbs are cite, support, and analyze. And our adjectives are textual and explicitly. Is there anything that we may like to add?
No, I think that sounds pretty good. I think one of our big focus points will be that analyze. That seems to be one of those words that the students seem to get stuck on a lot. So we'll make sure we focus that as we move through.
All right.
So let's take a look at our first spot of analyzing the standard, and we're going to break down what the students need to know for our standard.
Okay, so what we kind of determine as far as what the students need to know is that they need to know that an inference is a conclusion that is based on evidence. The students need to know the difference between main ideas and details. That main idea is the overall point of the text, and details support or elaborate on the overall point. Okay, students also need to know that evidence supports a conclusion. Excellent.
So when we're looking at how the students are going to demonstrate mastery, what kind of things are we looking at doing?
Okay, so like a DOK level 1 that we have is just your basic vocabulary quiz. And a couple DOK 2 levels, we have annotations and informal questioning and observation of classroom discussions.
Okay. What do those annotations look like? Is that going to be grade level wide, or how are we going to know if they're doing the annotations correctly?
Okay, so we'll be using our school-wide annotation system where we have every single class does. We all know what it is. Every single class has a poster for the kids to reference. Just basically utilizing things like underlining for importance, question marks for questions, and circling things that they don't quite understand or confuse them.
Excellent. Okay, so let's move on to the skills, how our students are going to show mastery of this standard.
Okay, so a few ways they're going to show mastery is they will need to know how to identify the main idea and supporting details of the text. They'll need to know how to make an actual claim, and they will need to know how to support an analysis. These are skills that they will use to show how.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got a few assignments on there, so can you work us through some of those assignments they're going to show?
Okay, absolutely. So annotations, again, that's going to be on the DOK level 2 that we will be utilizing. Thesis statement creation based on the text. Okay, so students will read a text and develop a thesis statement based on what they've read. And class discussion and arguments in the at DOK level 3, okay, class discussions and arguments that demonstrate the understanding of the text. And another DOK level 3, constructed response writing utilizing the RACE format, which is restate the question, answer it, cite evidence, and explain it. One thing I forgot to mention was that our annotations and our thesis statement creation would be DOK level 2.
Okay, excellent. And it looks like we've got some ideas for what that deeper understanding. Once we get these kids with the skills that they need and know what they need to know, our big focus, what we're trying to get them to move towards, is that they understand that supporting their analysis and inferences with textual evidence will legitimize their claims and further their understanding. And our big task for that is a DOK level 4, and students are going to be synthesizing multiple texts in our performance task and then support an analysis using those texts.
Sounds good.
So let's move on to some academic vocabulary. We've got a few tier 1s and tier 2 vocabulary.
Okay, yeah, so the academic vocabulary that we looked at and thought would be important, I'm going to go ahead and start with tier 1 level, which are words that students should pick up independently throughout the unit, and but we will explicitly teach in special cases. These words are evidence, cite, text, explain, claim, sources, quotations, and reasoning. Again, that is tier 1. Moving on to our tier 2 academic vocabulary, these words are pertinent to understanding the concepts that we're teaching, and we will absolutely explicitly teach them and even assess them for proficiency. These words are explicitly, inference, relevant, justify, engage, transitions, and establish.
Excellent. Okay. So we're going to move on from there, and we're going to move into our problem of practice. This is something that we've been looking at through our students and even school-wide, and something we look to improve upon in the standard. And we've identified that students are not using these text analysis skills, including annotations, presented in class when engaging and responding to text independently. So we know that the students can do them when we're telling them to annotate or when we're telling them to respond, but when they're just given a passage independently or cold, they don't use those annotations that they've been working on throughout the year. So let's look at some tasks we're going to go over. Our first task is a DOK level 2, and that goes back to our annotations. We're going to be using our annotations that we use school-wide to go through a text. Students will read an informational text and annotate after multiple reads. Annotations will include main idea identification for each major section through just jots, and just jots are off to the side in the margins. Gotcha, thank you. In the margins where they underline key parts and then give us some ideas of what the main idea is off to the side. And then we're also looking for underlines, highlights, any notes of questions, major words that they are struggling with, any comments that they want to make throughout the text, and we'll be looking at that through their annotations.
Excellent.
We'll use those annotations to then move them into their DOK level 3 assignment, which is their constructive response. A constructive response uses evidence to support analysis, and they will basically be answering a question using the text. And we're going to have them using the RACE format. And I know you had a great idea for how they could better make sure they're following all four of those steps for RACE.
Yeah, I think it makes it easier for them, and I think it also makes it easier for us teachers to kind of look at it. But I always have the students color code the different parts of RACE. So like I usually do like restate the question as blue, so they write that out as blue, answering it as green, citing their evidence as yellow, and explaining it as red. But I think it's a great format for the kids to follow. It helps them kind of internalize it. It also helps us analyze the work.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's big help to be able to just look through it real quick and know that they're either getting one part or missing one part. It seems that those citing and explaining evidence parts are always the ones that are lacking when students are trying to explain their answer.
They struggle with it.
So our last part, we're going to move into our short cycle assessment, which is really just a culmination of both of our DOK 2 and 3 assignments, our annotations as well as our constructive response. Students are going to read and annotate an informational article. We have a lot of articles that we get from ReadWorks. I know we use Newsela and some other spots to get our articles, including our Scholastic News as well. And they're going to take one of those articles, they're going to annotate through it, including their just jots, their important ideas, main ideas, details, questions, and focus words, and it will move them towards constructive responses at the end. We'll provide them with a couple questions that they have to respond to. We're looking for those questions to be responded in with our RACE format, including the color coding, and we hope that that will best prepare them for those summative assessments that require going back in the text, which is really our focus for this standard, is citing that evidence. Students seem to make great points, but actually backing them up is what we're working on. So as we close up here, is there any other questions you have or concerns?
No, I mean, I think it all looks pretty good. I think once we implement it and see how things play out through data analysis, we can kind of revisit and tweak things if we need to.
Yeah, excellent. Sounds great. I look forward to meeting back here soon to talk about our progress with our classes.
All right.
Thank you.